We're really excited to chat with you guys about how we've handled this topic and just maybe even hear some ideas that you guys have had and have a good conversation about this. So I'm Julie Mays. I'm the Angus Journal editor. I've been with the association for about a year. Previous to that, I was with the Hereford World doing a similar position as editor. And then prior to that, I was with the Ohio Cattlemen's Association and Beef Council. I'm a K-State AgCom and Animal Science grad, and I'm excited to be here.
Hi everybody, my name is Katie Holdener. I serve as the digital content manager here at the American Angus Association. I'm coming up on like a year and a half, almost 2 years. Prior to this, I was actually also at the American Hereford Association as their marketing communications coordinator. I'm a 2016 graduate of Oklahoma State. Go Pokes, if there are any joining in. I'm actually originally from California. I grew up on my family's row crop farm there in the Central Valley, and now I'm a Missouri transplant. I love everything about social media and covering the Angus breed.
I'm Rachel Robinson. I'm the communications manager for the American Angus Association. I've also been here for about a year and a half. So we're all relatively new to Angus. Before this, I worked at a couple different advertising agencies on different agricultural clients, and graduated from the University of Missouri, ag journalism in 2010. So super excited to talk to you guys today. Somehow we got 3 different schools represented in this room.
All right, so today we're going to cover our digital public relations, broadcast, and print media platforms. And there's just 3 of us here today, but we have a lot of team members who are not in this room with us. So on the Angus Journal team, we have an artist and a assistant editor. We have a whole other editorial team with the Angus Beef Bulletin who do a great job with communicating to our commercial cattlemen. And I'll let you guys share a little bit more about your teams and channels.
So we've got, on the association communications team, we've got a team of 10. 3 of those are specifically focused on video production and video content. And then, the rest of us are doing everything from marketing to communications to public relations. We wear a lot of different hats, and we collaborate really closely with the Angus Journal team. We write some articles that go in there in addition to our advocating on behalf of all of the association departments and entities. So large team. Katie and I are both part of that team, and we work together to make sure we get the best content out there promoting Angus.
So today, we have a lot of junior events and shows that happen with the American Angus Association, National Junior Angus Association. But today our focus will be the National Junior Angus Show. So as we're talking about covering events, this is the one that we're referring to. So the National Junior Angus Association is our youth program. We have around 6,000 members, and you guys are probably very familiar with youth programs, but this is focused on helping them build their life skills and character, providing not only information on raising their cattle and growing their farm or ranch, but also educational contests and things like that. So Katie's going to share with us a little bit about what happened last year at our NJAS.
Yeah, so as you can see, we have a ton of cattle, so many kids and families running around. It's a really busy week, from all of the contests going on to also the educational sessions that are going on throughout the week. People are running around the fairgrounds, and we also kind of have to keep up with them with our cameras and social media and whatnot. So you can look through the stats. I won't go through them all, but there's a lot going on. So we have to remember that not only is this about the kids, but it's also about the families that are there supporting them, the public that comes to watch the show. We really have to keep an open mind to who's all going to be there at the fairgrounds. We love that the junior show lets kids compete competitively, but there's also, like I said, everything that goes on with the memories that are made, the friendships that happen, and then you get to meet people from around the country. So that graphic on the right is something I'll go into in the next couple slides. We like to show how many kids and how many entries are going on ahead of time, and it just kind of makes things easier to digest when you have it in a fun layout and a graphic that you can read really quickly rather than a big long post with a ton of numbers like this slide. So we can go to the next one. Okay. So our planning really starts right around now, end of April, starting in the beginning of May. We like to look back at what we did last year. Let's see what kind of graphics performed well, what have some other shows done that we like that we can see if we can use something like that in our plans. We try to get a lot of stuff done ahead of time. So one of our big challenges is trying to stay consistent throughout our social media, whether that's with our photos and our fonts and making sure that everything blends well and it also reflects the Angus brand. So our intern comes on board first part of May, and last year our intern was awesome and she really took charge of a lot of the pre-designed graphics, which was really helpful. So we give them a lot of creativity. We say, here's our style guide as far as fonts and the logos go and colors, and we want them to have fun. We want them to learn how to do this kind of stuff. And most of the time the intern is usually pretty active on social media, so they know and they come to the table with a lot of great ideas. Also, prior to the junior show, we lay out our daily outlines for Facebook, Instagram, sometimes Twitter for the results. We like to go into the junior show with a plan every day, but we also have to keep in mind there's got to be room for flexibility. So if something comes up, we find a great family that would love some photos taken, or we find a kid that's really passionate about the auctioneering contest or something interesting, we make sure that we leave a little room for flexibility. We also come up with our video plan. Like Rachel said, we have 3 full-time videographers, and we like to give them as much time to plan their days as well. We also are really, really proud of our creative videos that we crank out before the junior show, during the junior show, and after the junior show. So we like to kind of have a plan in place by the end of June, so that way going into junior show, we're promoting it ahead of time with some really fun pump-up videos. We also do a lot of e-newsletters, so those go directly to the juniors that are exhibiting as well as juniors in general. We like everybody to be on the same page, whether that's with registration deadlines, entry deadlines, contest reminders. We try to keep everyone that maybe is not super active on social media, but is checking their email. We want to make sure we cover all of our bases as far as communication goes. We also have the NJAA mobile app, which is very helpful for getting direct information right on your cell phone. And the really nice part is we can swipe to directly link them to things. We can send them reminders every day if we have to. And then when the show is over, we can send them a link directly to the show results. So we try to plan out all of our different avenues so everyone is covered if they're not on social media, if they're checking their email, or on the mobile app. And then as far as execution goes, that is when it all kind of comes together during the week. So like I said, we bring our intern on board. We also have a big team, so we like to assign coverage so that every event, every contest, every show has a body there, doing some Instagram stories, taking photos, getting interviews if we need them. We also try to get photos, like I said, at pretty much every contest. So at the end of the day, we have our wrap up video, but people also like to swipe through and look at albums, and we like to get the families, the emotion, the smiling, the hugging, the crying, the hard work that goes in. That'll kind of all be encapsulated in a Facebook album at the end of the day. At the very end of the show, we also email all of our press releases, and we're also going to start emailing all of our show results as well. So we have a big email list of people who are enthused about the Angus breed, and we're going to start sending those directly to them this year, which is something new.
From a public relations perspective, we obviously have a show results press release that goes to national media and winners local media. We total for the week, we send anywhere between 10 and 20 press releases. We evaluate the need, what newsworthy topics, what's different this year, and we sit down with events and education, the journal and our communications team to determine those, what releases are required for our sponsorships, and just make sure that we have a strategic plan in place, a strategy for distribution. Timing that many releases within 1 week can be a lot and really overload media. So having a strategic approach to that is super important to ensure we get maximum pickup. If it's something that Julie also wants to put in the journal that our team is writing, we create a unique article just for the journal that's different from a press release that we would send out, so that we don't have something that's mass produced in the journal. So and that means in some instances we're writing 2 pieces on one event or one thing. So it can be a lot more than even 10 to 20 written pieces by the end of it. And we do as much as we can ahead of time, as Katie said, but obviously a lot of those winners and stuff, we have to wait until, you know, as soon as the herdsman is selected, as soon as the showmanship winner is crowned, we're cranking out a release, putting the finishing touches and getting it out. And like I said, we target the hometown, regional, and national publications for that. Obviously, the junior show has quite a few sponsorships, so we have a plan in place to feature sponsors on various platforms with a timeline on when those need to happen. And then it's super important that we follow up and show the ways that we have mentioned sponsors and showcase them throughout the week. So that's a way that we can show the value back to them. Then every year we design a custom media kit for the year that we have available for local media that shows, you know, what events are going on and when, what are some cool stats, what is some background that they can pick up and use for custom stories. And we send out an alert ahead of time and let them know that we're coming to town and that we have this available. And so we usually get a fair amount of local media coverage as well. As far as our broadcasting, we have an Angus report that is specifically, the whole Angus report is about the junior show. So we've had the Angus report for several years, and so we have to sit down ahead of time and kind of determine the approach and topics, because we've covered almost everything under the sun. So we try to find a new approach and a new angle every year. So we're sitting down in April and May to determine what that is and get the topics lined out, start preparing scripts and set up interviews ahead of time and kind of slotting those out so that we know that we have time to get those in and also have time to have a shot list for B-roll to make sure we have everything we need before we leave to put together the Angus report. Something that we've had in place for a long time but are just starting to talk about is our belief statement, raising standards. There are 4 pillars that we focus on and have always focused on and made sure that everything that we do kind of holds up those pillars. So one of those is the next generation pillar, and that's obviously advocating for Angus youth and also, you know, ensuring the next generation of Angus cattlemen and women. So that's something that's super important to us, and that's why we have such a high focus on the junior show and the NJA events. As far as our opening and closing ceremonies, there are huge productions in and of themselves. That opening video is created ahead of time, but the closing video is made on site. So we kind of have a videographer that's focused on the Angus report, and we have a videographer that's focused on producing those ceremonies, making sure all the slides are up, the mics are working, all of that. And then a videographer focused on the closing video and the wrap-up videos that Katie mentioned. And those are typically shared on social media directly after they're shown to the crowd. So they kind of get more viewership than just the people that are physically there.
All right, so shifting gears to our print media, the Angus Journal. When we think about covering the National Junior Angus Show, we think about the September issue, which last year we ran about 80 pages of junior show coverage in this issue. And what's unique about this one, in addition to our May, is it's also distributed to all of our junior members, even if they don't have a subscription to the Angus Journal. So we really do spend a lot of time making sure this is a publication that will be applicable to them, as well as our other 13,000 subscribers. So when we think about planning for this issue, our main goals are to capture what happened at the event, and to provide a historical documentation. So it's pretty simple to think about that, but then we have to go in and think about prioritizing what would people like to know from this event, and then what's going to matter even years down the road. So we do find that a lot of our subscribers and members keep their Angus journal for many years, and oftentimes we refer back to, who was on the board that year, who won showmanship, things like that. So it is a place to keep track of those things. And we really want those who couldn't attend this event to get a good understanding of what happened, a good summary. And then also the ones who were able to go think like, hey, I remember that was accurate how they captured it. So those are the things that we're thinking about as we're story planning, taking pictures, and working on interviews. So as with any publication, every issue, we think about planning, and this one starts, when we think about our September issue, we start planning about now, similar to what Katie was saying. Springtime is when we really focus on it. We review what happened our previous year, and something that we've started to do is following the 2018 junior show, we sat down and talked about what worked and what didn't. So we have those notes for the next year, for this coming year, what we thought could have been better in execution. Of course, we have what we ran, but it's how do we get to that point? How can we make that better? We, of course, start with our schedule of events that the junior activities puts out, and see if there's any new contests, what contests are going to be there, if anything we need to be mindful of. We also communicate a lot, like I said, with the Junior Activities Department, but also the Angus Foundation, American Angus Auxiliary, have a big role in this event through scholarships and then also sponsoring contests. So we are in constant communication with them to make sure we're covering. So that would just be a suggestion for anybody covering junior shows. Just think about, outside of the actual show, who else you need to communicate with. And then thinking about what stories actually go in it, we start with what we have to cover, like our show results and contest results, the awards that were given, and then of course our National Junior Angus Board, who was elected. And then we also think about our new contest and any new awards. And we have to be really quite realistic with the pages that we have to print. We're maybe unlike social media, we have limits as to how much we can actually put into the magazine. So we do a lot of prioritizing and seeing how we can kind of get more content in without boiling down too much of the content. But when we think about the pages that we can have, it helps us determine our time management while at the event and prioritize the stories. Because we really don't want to come away from the week thinking we wasted our time on things that we're not going to be able to include. And then we sit down and create a team schedule, and we go pretty much hour by hour for the day, and we work closely with the PR team to help divide and conquer those events. But that schedule is what we live by, and it makes sure that we get to every event that we need to and cover it the way that we need to, or that we plan to. Something that is really fun but can also be kind of a thorn in our side are pictures. They're really fun to take and really fun to use, but they can also, the amount of photos we capture can get out of hand with digital cameras. So we spend a lot of time organizing those photos. So some things that I have learned is going into these events, thinking about your storage and organization for photos. Having a plan ahead of time will help us execute it in a great way. We name our photos. We were just actually talking here earlier. I think we have 10 photographers that come to these shows. So it's our staff and then a show photographer who has a couple on staff. And so we do want to make sure that our photographers get credit in our magazine for the pictures that they took. And so labeling and organizing are really important. And then also being able to quickly find the photos that we really like. So also thinking about a realistic number of photos needed. I recently attended, I guess last fall, my nephew's football game, and my sister's, it's flag football, very small, short game, and my sister asked me to take some pictures. And so I was just snapping away and I gave her the card and she's like, Julie, you took like over 200 photos. What am I supposed to do with this? And so it was just an example of like how quickly things can get out of hand. She only wanted maybe 3 to 5, something to share on Facebook. So just being mindful of the photos needed. So when we're taking pictures for the journal, we really do think about the layout, how it's going to be used in the magazine. So the pictures I shared here would be an example of 3 pictures I would pull for the showmanship contest. So we've got a nice wide angle shot that shows kind of the background, multiple kids showing. We have a close up that kind of shows some emotion, and then a detail shot. So, you know, realistically, we're only using probably 3 to 6 photos per layout. So taking time to create the photos that we'll need and be able to use in the magazine is something we prioritize. Yeah, just also thinking about different angles. When we're covering these events, the close-up shots for the background blurred out are awesome, and I love using them. But when I'm thinking about telling the story, I also want to know, like, what was the crowd like there? What did the show ring look like? How did the families react after their kid won? Or, you know, I thought they did a really good job showing. So having multiple photographers there, it is really helpful to be able to capture all of that. But if you are the only person covering it, you know, just think about the different lenses you have, being able to capture the wide angle shots and the close-up shots. I think one person could definitely be able to capture all of the emotions going on. We share all of our photos. We are able to use a lot of what the PR team takes as well as our show photographers. But then with the journal, we're also thinking about what unique photos can we use that haven't been published elsewhere, especially if we're thinking about a cover photo. We really want to keep that unique and kind of a surprise. And then a few more tips that I've picked up and learned from others. You know, the junior show has a big awards banquet. And with the previous association I worked with, they gave awards out 2 times during the week. And so asking for those results early was really helpful to be able to follow along with the script, or maybe know those award winners. That's a surprise to them, I guess. So it gives you an opportunity to capture those really cool photos, and you know what kind of photos you need. But you also have to be trustworthy with that information. So a lot of times that's not handed out easily. So you also have to be mindful to not, you know, express that you're not going to share that. You're only going to use it to get what you need. Working ahead is really helpful, especially like working with Rachel and her team on press releases. If they're not covering a story further that they're writing a press release for, if we can get the meat of it ahead of time and then follow up with interviews to get some more unique quotes for that. We like to do that. And then sometimes there's even stories that can be written ahead of time. So here I have this Time Flies layout on the slide. Last year we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the National Junior Angus Show. And our intern was able to do the bulk of her interviews prior to the junior show. So that was something that freed up her time while we're at the junior show to, you know, cover and get a few more things. So there are stories when you think about planning that you can do ahead of time. Also in our schedule, we do plan for flexibility. There's often stories that we don't know about until we get there. One example last year was there was a gal from New Hampshire who was the only one from her state, and we didn't know that till opening ceremonies. It was announced, and she was there to participate in the showmanship contest. So we had flexibility worked in our schedule for those types of stories, and we're able to send somebody out and interview her and kind of follow her around and get photos and capture her experience there. And then we're also in the digital world, so we think about what can be shared just digitally, since we have limited number of pages in our magazine. And we also think about the next year's event when we're capturing some content and photos, because often we're promoting these events, we're helping to promote what's going on. So having some pictures and some content to share makes the next year go more smoothly. And take lots of notes during the event, because it's amazing how quickly you can forget what happened.
Yes.
And that's all I had. Do you guys have anything else to add right now?
I don't think so.
Are there any questions for us?
So I have a question. I mean, now with digital cameras and things, do you download pictures every night and organize every night there at Angus, or do you do it at the end, or how do you keep up? You know, you talked about how many photos you have. So are you kind of doing that every night and saving it to computers and hard drives, or how are you kind of managing it on a day-to-day basis?
I'll let you guys talk about how you handle
Yeah.
yours.
So what I prefer to do is kind of at the conclusion of the day, whether we're heading to dinner or heading back to the hotel, I try to grab everyone's cards and download them and make sure that everything's saved and named accordingly. And then I also ask the photographers too, as they're going through the day, if they could rate them on their camera, or when they're done and they want to drop them on, I ask them to put together like a best for social folder, just so I know what their favorite photos are, because not everyone has time to sort through 1,000 photos from the day to pull the top 4 or 5. So it's kind of the individual photographer's favorite photos that get put on social media at the end of the day. But yeah, I try to organize them as the days go on, because cards get full, things get confusing, and it's just easier to sort too if you drop them off at the end of the day, or at least at the end of your coverage. If you're done at noon or if you're done at 3, drop them on the hard drive as soon as you're done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it's similar for us with the journal team. And we do have a place when we get back to the office to share all of our photos between the 2 teams. But we had 3 photographers last year, myself, our intern, and our assistant editor. And yeah, similar to Katie, we dump our photos at either the end of the day if it's a really busy day,
Yeah.
or if we have a little bit of a break, just to keep up with it. And then similar to what Katie said, marking the ones that we know are good.
Yeah.
So when we come back
To sort.
yeah, to sort it. And for our September issue, it's usually a pretty quick turnaround and needing those photos plucked. So
We have a question. How are media releases with youth exhibitors addressed? Is this part of the entry form, or does the Angus Association have a blanket statement that they follow these events? So when you're taking pictures of youth, do you have permission, or how does that work at Angus?
I believe it's in their, when they enter for the show, I believe it's in their like code of conduct and their things that get signed right off the bat. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
So kind of follow along with that, when you're working with your photographers, do you ask them to, like Julie, when you're getting ready to write cut lines for the magazine and stuff, are you asking your photographers to get names and stuff like that to help with cut lines, or how do you kind of handle that with so many exhibitors from all across the country?
yeah, that's a great question. For show results, as well as all of our contest results, our PR team does a great job of handling that, identifying those youth in the pictures. So
Yeah.
we pull that information from them, and then when we think about feature stories, of course, I ask our writers to take responsibility for writing and writing the cut lines for the kids. But you might have more to add.
I mean, I cannot tell you how many times we've been stalking people on Facebook to we didn't get them written down somehow in the chaos of the day, and now we're gonna try to figure out what their name is and the correct spelling as well, because it's crazy how many people have a name, go by a different name, and so just trying to make sure that we get the right thing put in there to identify people.
A helpful tip we've learned through opening ceremonies or closing ceremonies, whenever there's a script with people's names, and we'll grab them at the backdrop and write, okay, raise your hand for who, and we'll write 1, 2, 3 on the name on the script, so that we know, like, left to right it's 2, 4, 7, 8, blah blah blah, things like that. That's the way at least it's in print before we leave, and we know what kid is in what backdrop photo for their awards.
But certainly the goal is to ID them in the moment while we're there and write it down, so that we don't have to ID people on Facebook for hours when we get back.
Do you have someone on your team, with today's social media and that's kind of managing or making sure all the messages that your members are doing are educational and not, you know, or you don't have somebody coming in from outside posting things that you need to address as association? How do you guys handle that? Or is there somebody constantly checking Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and making sure everything's positive?
Yes, ma'am, that's me. I'm the digital content manager. So for anything on the association side, it flows through our team and it goes through us, and then we kind of address it with Rachel and Clint. If anything, it does come up or needs a required comment or message back to them, it flows through us.
I will say, I feel, maybe Katie disagrees, but I feel like we do get mostly positive comments. We rarely have to address a negative comment directly on our page.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Ange, can you hear me?
Yep. Hey, Jakey. Thank you
How
for
are ya?
sponsoring Coffee and Collaboration.
I know. I'm driving down the road between stops, so I thought I better listen to these experts. Hey, my question is, you know, I'm the king of Facebook Live. Do you guys do any kind of, you know, social media live reports throughout? I mean, like little interviews with the kids, or maybe a young kid that's the first time. I mean, have you incorporated any of that into the junior national? Because of course I'm usually there, so I never see that.
Yeah, so we make sure we go live from all of the champion selections, and then we also work in with some of our sponsors. That's in their contract that they do on a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live. We also give our junior board some flexibility too, so if they know a family or know a kid, they go grab them and say, hey, we're here with so-and-so this morning getting ready for the fitting contest, or, oh, we're here this morning at the basketball tournament or the golf tournament. So yeah, we try to cover it all. It's not always on Facebook Live, but it's definitely, we try to get a mix up of just about everything that goes on, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, sometimes on Twitter, and try to do it as creatively as possible.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So Julie, thinking about that cover, and I remember that stress many times. So how do you attend, like before you go into the junior national, are you thinking about where to get that cover image and what you want each year?
Yeah, last year, yes, we think about going into it. I, first of all, share with our photographers that we're looking for a cover photo, and it gets people excited to like take vertical shots that are creative, because a cover photo is a really awesome opportunity for a photographer. And so I do share with them that we need a vertical shot. We have to have room for, our AJ logo at the top, and then a mailing spot. So we have to be mindful of that kind of stuff. And then I also think about what we've had previous years. There is planning that goes into it, and I think about it a lot. And then something we've also done here is utilize junior photos for covers. So our September issue cover of last year was actually a photo a junior sent in for the contest. So it's really fun to highlight their skills as well.
Anyone else have any questions? Any thoughts?
I know we talked a lot,
Yeah.
so hopefully we covered.
They're really short, so
Yeah.
short and sweet.
Well, we appreciate everybody being on today. And again, thank you, Julie, Katie, and Rachel for sharing your knowledge with all of us. Just as we look forward, the next session will be on May 22nd. We're excited to have Lance Zimmerman, who is the CattleFax Manager, Research Analysis and Data. He's also a past Forrest Bassford Award winner, but he's going to share with us lies, damned lies, and statistics, the art of writing with numbers. So make sure you get that on your calendar, and we're really excited to have Lance share his knowledge with us, and kind of, all of us that are writers, it's hard to share some of those numbers with producers, and so he's going to kind of help give us some tips on how we can efficiently and effectively do that. So thank you guys for sharing your knowledge, and for all you LPC members that joined us.